very little about you. We have awkwardly stared at each other for the last 8 minutes.
It's everything about the concept is what we don't do anymore. We don't just have conversations with people where there's not an agenda. Right?
It's like meeting a stranger in a parking lot or something, and then like, hey, you want to have coffee?
Yes. Oh, so how you doing? How's your day?
Exactly. Well, we are live here, Coffee with Humans, with my soon-to-be new friend, Christina. She's still actually a stranger. I only met her about 8 minutes ago. That's the essence of Coffee with Humans. Two people just bumping into each other randomly and then saying, hey, let's grab coffee. Before we got on the broadcast, I was thinking if we could have this discussion anywhere, where would that be? And I came up with we could be sitting in Iceland in a hot spring.
Lovely.
If you could have this discussion anywhere, where would it be for you?
Love this question. I'm stumped right now. I'm not really a beach person in terms of getting in with the aquatic life, but I do like to be near it and feel the breeze from it. Okay. And so anywhere by a beach.
What drew you to clicking the button to have coffee with me?
Was searching and I found this one and it grabbed me, it pulled me in, and it just seemed, your podcast and Coffee with Humans seemed very welcoming, that you were really eager and enjoyed just making meaningful connections.
Coffee with Humans is like Sunday brunch.
I love Sunday brunch.
Okay, good. Because, well, you're in the right place. Only there's no food. It's true. We are live here once again with another episode of Coffee with Humans. I don't even know what episode we're on. We're well over 200 episodes with my soon-to-be new friend, Coach Lee Hopkins.
Hey.
Welcome to Coffee with Humans.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Well, I promised you before the broadcast that we wouldn't discuss anything important or meaningful until this moment. And I think we need to set the stage here. I don't know why you're here. So I'm wondering, I know why I'm here, and I'm wondering, why are you here? What inspired you to click the button to have coffee with me?
What inspired me to click the button? Let me see. Okay, this is easy.
Inspired, maybe inspired is too big of a word.
Not at all. That's
okay.
the perfect word. I was like, I must do this. Drawn to it. And the thing that drew me to it was the fact that I like to help and make connections with people. And I thought this is a perfect atmosphere to do so. This is a perfect atmosphere. It's like almost like a test version of what it's like to be out in the real world. Like someone's willing to sit and have a conversation with you. Someone who's willing to open up and be interested in you. I don't have to go find that person. They are waving at me with this little button saying, hey, I want to talk to you. How could I resist?
Well, that's true.
How could I resist?
That's an interesting assessment. I like that. Well, it's true. I mean, Coffee with Humans, and I think we discussed this very briefly before the broadcast, but for our new viewers and listeners, Coffee with Humans, the intention behind it is that when two people together when two people get together with the goal of making a connection and making the world a better place, I think it's actually a sacred space. Two souls communicating I think it transcends whatever our all the stuff that we can feel and touch. I think, you called this, I asked you what to name this chat based on what was on your mind, and you said conscious connection. And I think that's a real good assessment of what people actually desire. They really want to feel connected to somebody else.
Absolutely. I believe that we all want to be understood, like not just like understood, like shaking your head, like, but more like we want to feel that you really understand. We want the demonstration that you understand me. And so I get an opportunity to sit down with somebody who wants to do that. I'm just really excited about that.
Well, cool. We're going to have a good time. And I also, for our viewers and listeners, I don't know where you're located. I did no research. So I'm going to go first. I'm near Chicago, Illinois. Where are you located?
I'm in Uptown Chicago.
Are you really? Okay.
I am really.
Okay, so I'm in Rockford, 60 miles west. I just never say Rockford because people are like, we don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But you do.
I do know what you're talking about. And you are not in Chicago. You're out there around Chicago. So yeah, definitely.
Well, yeah, for all the people who know the name Chicago, Chicago is its own. It's its own thing.
It's Chicago,
right?
Yeah,
exactly. We're like, I don't know who we are. We're I don't know. We're in the hinterlands. I don't know. We're like the second or third largest city in Illinois, and we get no respect because all anybody knows about Illinois is Chicago. and corn.
That's it. Like, I had no idea that Rockford was that big.
See?
Pretty shocked. Yeah, I'm pretty shocked.
Yeah, it's either us or Peoria, I think it is. We have
Peoria.
150,000 people, something like that.
Wow. Yeah,
I know.
it's
You could fit most of us into a major league national or football stadium.
That's an interesting fact about that. So more respect for Rockford out there. Okay, like,
Thank you.
I understand Chicago is the place for Illinois, but also Rockford. Don't forget it. I will never forget.
Thank you. Yes, we're spilling interesting facts here. Well, beyond the interesting facts, it is true. I do enjoy making connections with other people, and you talked about this being did you say an experiment or a test ground?
Yeah.
For getting together with people. You know, is the hashtag IRL now? Is that the hashtag in real? I didn't grow up with hashtags, so I don't know. But
Yeah,
in real life, right?
Yeah, and people actually say that too. Like, I'm a little older. I'm almost 40, so saying LMAO and stuff like LOL, it feels kind of strange, but it's something that's just permeated. Like, all right, then hashtag LOL, hashtag experiment. Here we go.
Yeah. Well, on a superficial level, maybe not so superficial. That is, kind of gets to the core of what you're talking about of understanding people. Because I was in, okay, so I was doing some music with some people the other day, and they were saying something like "pull up." Why don't you just pull up? And I was like, "What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about." and I was, I'm a pretty quick study, and so I was like, oh, that's right. I could just show up to the event. I don't have to, I could just come to your office. But instead of saying, hey, come to my office, it's like, why don't you pull up?
Just much shorter and easier, right? Just like, but where does that come from? Like, for me, the first thing that I thought of when I heard that was like the pull-ups, with the kids training pants. Like, why don't you just pull up? All right, that's bad. that's not what, I don't know what they're saying. It's not what they're saying. We missed the point together. But
I don't know. It was a bunch of gospel singers, and then they broke it down and they said it's an African American slang for just show up to my place. And I thought, wow, all right, I like it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But I feel weird saying pull up because I've just never done it before. It's like, using hashtags or my she's 16, and I struggled sometimes with, because she talks to me like LOL, and I'm like, why are you? I'm in the car with you. I'm not texting you. You don't need to say that. Like, and yet I have to sort of just get used to it because that's the vernacular. And why, who crowned me king of vernacular? Just because that's the generation I grew up in. Without this stuff, and she would feel misunderstood if I didn't just get on the train. And say fine, LOL. Like, I don't know what we're saying here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's like some kind of adjustment that we all have to make, sort of like her understanding of, oh, wait, maybe he doesn't understand, and there's an opportunity for me to explain, or maybe, and then there's the opportunity for you to be like, oh yeah, this is stupid, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to feel like, wow, why are we doing this? Why are we changing it to something that's not familiar to me? But
right.
I want to connect. I want to understand. So let me take a moment to set that idea aside and just LOL. Just do it.
Right. Just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Let a person have their thing. Just because it's not mine makes almost no difference in many cases.
Right. And I find that being curious about where that stuff comes from really helps make a better connection too. Like, curious about where all this stuff comes from. What are you really trying to say? And what experiences have led you to speak those words to me? And that's probably why we're here too today.
Probably. So, okay. So Coach Lee Hopkins, you're a coach. You want to talk about building conscious connection.
Mm-hmm.
What do you coach? I'm not gonna guess. I could guess.
Great. You could. You sure you don't?
I'm not going.
Okay.
Should I take a stab at it? Do I win anything?
I think I cannot. Respect for your city. That's all I can give you for this.
Well, that's not worth much. I need something deeper than respect for my.
Something deeper. Respect for you.
All right, I'll take that. Okay,
All right.
so I'll take a stab. Coach, connecting on the internet, talking about conscious connection. I'm going to put it in the overarching umbrella of life coaching.
Okay.
However, I'm guessing that you have a specialty, some focus area that you kind of zone in on, which would be something around relationships, relationship with yourself, relationship with others.
Yeah, bingo. Boom. I knew you would get it. Yes. Damn. Yes. See, that's why I didn't want to offer you anything that I couldn't really give.
I need one of those applause buttons.
Applause. Yes. Applause. Yes. I help people make connections, specifically friendships. I help people develop friendships with themselves. Of course, it's myself first. The connection with yourself first, discovering yourself, and then making those friendships with other people. Friendships, they evolve into relationships. They evolve into anything that you want it to be, but it all starts with yourself. And that's why I was like, this is a perfect place to discuss that and to see, like, talk to someone who's willing and open. So that's what we all want. So yeah, that's what I do. I help people make friendships.
So in my experience, building friendships with others is very difficult when one does not have a solid friendship with themselves. And because there's a bunch of bobbing and weaving, and I don't want you to know this from me, and I don't want you to hear that from me. And so I'm conforming myself to, like a chameleon, right? I become sort of chameleon in the relationship, which doesn't build closeness.
No, not at all.
There's a barrier. It keeps a barrier between people, which I think tends to keep people away from building friendships. It's like I'm consciously keeping you off.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like that, because I used to do that, and that's why now I'm so focused on how we create friendships and develop these relationships, because I would imagine that I knew what the other person wanted from me, and I would give them what I thought that they wanted from me. And so then I become a chameleon. I'd be wishy-washy. I would show up sometimes. I would say yes when I really meant no. And then I would resent them because I really meant no, but I didn't want to lose them. And it was just all about me trying to have this power and control over how our friendship was going to look. And that just didn't work out. None of my friendships lasted because I did that. None of my relationships lasted because I did that. And I always thought it was a problem with them. Because in my mind, I'm like, I'm perfect because I know exactly what you want. I know exactly how to give you what you want. This is what I'm thinking. It's completely wrong. I was completely disconnected. I was in my own little world worrying about me, not listening to them. So that's why the relationship and the connection starts out with us and ourselves. What the heck was causing that with me? That curiosity. What was I so afraid of? What didn't I want to share? What did I thought was such a big deal? What did I think was such a big deal? So just encompassing that. So I'm here to bear it all. I'm like ready for you to ask me some questions.
What were you afraid of?
What was I afraid of? Being my authentic self, which is the generic answer. It's like I was afraid that I would be rejected. Essentially, no matter what it was, no matter what I did or said, I wanted to make sure that I understood the steps that I needed to take not to be rejected. Right. So I would do that. And so there were some things that full disclosure, here it is. I'm a trans man. And before that, I came out of the closet as a lesbian. So before that, I was a lesbian, had to come out of the closet feeling rejected. I thought I was going to be rejected about that. And sure enough, that happened. Some people didn't like me. And I was still afraid to show myself, still afraid to do anything, show my talents, be proud of myself. Anything like that. I was afraid that somebody was going to come and cut me down and tell me I wasn't worth anything. So don't show up like you have anything. Don't show up being proud. Don't show up being talented. Don't show up being interested in anything, because somebody out there is going to tell you that you shouldn't do that and make you feel like garbage. And I just wanted to avoid that entire thing. So I just morphed into whoever I thought was going to be interested in me.
Interesting. I feel like that's a common theme.
Yeah.
I've talked to lots of people, and it's a pretty common, in my experience, it's a pretty common, I don't want to say experience twice, but it's a common experience in human nature that we want to be fully seen and fully accepted.
Yes.
And it's even a common theme that as we go through the journey of life, that we have ourselves convinced of all sorts of things at any given time, which also change, and we know it too. So it's like, I was talking to back to my daughter. Maybe she doesn't want me talking about her, but too bad she's not here. So we were driving down the road. It wasn't all that long ago, and I was not happy. I don't know why. Maybe I hadn't had enough food or something. I don't know. But I was snappy, like snapping on people, like, get in the other lane. And I, as if people could hear me. Has nothing at all to do with them. Has everything to do with what's happening,
right.
In my soul. And she was talking back to me. She's like, Dad, don't respond to people like that. Don't talk to people like that. Now, she's number one. She's absolutely right. Don't do that. Don't be that person. Number two, though, I didn't even want to be that person.
Right.
So I don't need you telling me about it.
Right.
16-year-old daughter, stop arguing with me. Just let it go. Let me speak this into existence.
Yes.
And then it's gone. I'm just trying to get it out so it stops having control of me. I don't want that festering here because it's just making it worse. So I just want to speak it out. Leave me alone. Let me have my moment.
Yeah, exactly.
And someday I'll be more patient. And I have seen that I've seen that through time. I've become a more patient individual over time.
Yeah, man. Jason, I'm like so on point with you. I'm right there with you. And I think that not only do you want to express that and get that out in the world, but the connection is for somebody to grab that and be like, yeah, I know exactly why you feel that in this moment. Not don't feel that way, but yeah, of course. Screw those people. I mean, for that moment, this is how you're feeling. And then boom, we can let it go because you want to be seen and heard and understood in that moment. No matter what kind of emotion that you're having flowing out there, if you want to share joy, then you want somebody next to you being like, yeah, let's pump it up, let's blast the music, let's feel this joy. And if you've got that anger out there, you want somebody to kind of reflect that to you as well, just to get it out there, just to be able to see it. And then you can actually get past it and start diving into where is that coming from? Where is that coming from? And you get somebody to help you feel that, not just dismiss it, because of course you can yell it and scream it and get it out. It's very therapeutic, but man, we want someone to understand why we feel that way in the first place. And then it makes it easier for us to just let it go. And I think that's the key, the connection, this demonstration that I talked about understanding other people, understanding how we feel. And we can do it, I think, through the medium that we have now, with Coffee with Humans. We can do it right here, not at a coffee shop, but a virtual thing where there's no coffee, right? But yeah, I think that's what I hope people do, is realize that it's not about you have coffee. That's not fair. I mean, I could have brought my own coffee.
You could have. I'm going to let you in on a secret, though.
What's that?
Just so I'm fully understood. It's 12:20 p.m. And if I were having actual coffee at this hour, I would be calling you at 2 a.m. tomorrow saying, why did you let me have coffee at this late hour? So this is water, dude.
Okay. Cheers. I've got some water too, though.
I figured that was something I learned about myself long time ago. I would go hard on coffee all morning in the office because I was programming and really in the zone. It was good for me. It felt like, but it was really bad for everybody else. And it would eventually have to get to a point where I'd be like, hey, I apologize. I don't like me right now. I am so amped up on coffee and I know that you won't. So I'm going to close my door. I don't mean to be disconnected from you, but I do. And you definitely want me to be. So, if it's an emergency, you knock on my door. Otherwise, I'm just going to be. And it really helped my productivity, but really damaged my relationships.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can definitely see that because you got really focused. And you did the thing you wanted to do, but no one else was able to connect with you because you're in your own zone, thinking about your own self and being that. That's understandable.
Yeah. So I had to lay off coffee. And I know, like today, I've had no coffee because I'm in a writing zone. I've been writing a book, and
oh, nice,
right?
Super interesting.
It is. You'll love it. You seem like a book person, so I'll say you'll love it. Maybe you'll hate it. I don't know. but it could be crap. I don't know.
No, you're right. You're right.
But it's a book almost.
Okay, you're writing a book.
So I am writing a book, and I felt like over the past couple of days, my energy level was getting like, and my anxiety, like internal anxious anxiety, feelings of anxiety, were kind of getting amped up just over various things. And so I felt like I needed to bring that down by not having coffee today.
Oh.
So that I didn't artificially create in me any drive, so that I could just have the naturally created drive of my body rather than adding to it. So it's a water day. And actually I had a craving for orange juice too. Unfortunately, I have one of those little frozen orange juice things, and I made one of those 1.5 liters or whatever.
Wow.
Concentrated orange juice, which was amazing.
Yeah, those are pretty amazing. I haven't had those in such a long time, but
I know. I thought, do I have one of those? And sure enough, it must have been in my freezer for the past 2 years. But that's what freezer's for. And it was delicious. So now I felt like I got my vitamin C. My body was craving something, and maybe it was masked even by, coffee or whatever. But so yeah, that's water. That's my explanation of water. Tying that all back in to what we're talking about. Sometimes we are treating ourselves in a way that prevents us from having connections with each other, because we can be very easily misunderstood when we are perhaps amped up on coffee or craving something or haven't eaten. We are fickle people. We think we have ourselves all figured out, and that's some bullshit, because there is a thin line between we are really cool and we're an absolute nut job, and we can push ourselves over the edge with a drink.
Yes, absolutely. And I find it really cool that you, though, talked about programming, just kind of jumping and grabbing the subject from here and there. You talked about programming, because I used to do programming, and I understand what it means to be like trying to be in the zone with the Monster energy drinks and just being productivity focused and not focusing on anything else outside of it. But it's really cool. I think, though, there's a time when you're able to do that and communicate what's happening with you to other people so that they understand. And as I was sitting here listening to you, I was thinking, wow, yeah, I think that although it seems like you've done damage to your relationships, you've made them aware of how you are, and you've set these nice boundary to let them know, hey, this is a moment where I'm not going to be nice to you and enter at your own risk. Essentially, you didn't say all that, but it just letting them know that this is me, and I'm aware of what's going on with myself. And I also want you to be aware. Don't be surprised. Don't be alarmed. And they can give them the ability to act accordingly. I think that seems very vulnerable. That's something that becomes with your self-awareness, where you're like, yeah, I know what I'm going to do and how I'm going to behave. And you might get upset with me, but I'm going to share that with you rather than just ignore how you might feel about it. And like, wow, that is something that was really hard to do. But I think that's the key to making friendships, is knowing how you're going to be and what you're going to do. Like, don't come at me before I had coffee, something like that, like it's so much not about setting boundaries as keeping things out, but also defining yourself by keeping things in. This is me, and this is my personality. This is what I like and what I don't like. And this is what I expect from you, and this is what you can expect from me. And we can negotiate there and facing that rejection head on.
Yeah, I think that's important. I like how you called that out, that the idea of vulnerability in saying even things like, I'm acting this way because I'm super amped up on coffee. And I think the alternative to that, like you talked about before, is trying to change, maybe even fight against the things that I know that I need in my life just to make you happy. And I think there's a degree, I think our culture is swinging a little bit too far on self-actualization, because we just are not, we haven't had life all that difficult for the past, let's say, 2 decades. And even now we're in a culture where children are raised to just think about themselves almost in perpetuity, but at least into the mid-20s. after which you're going to somehow like magically, have really like solid relationships and maybe start families or whatever. It's like, that's not going to work. So whereas, let's say 100 years ago, and for all of previous history, when kids kind of the teenage years, it's like, okay, you're physically capable of doing work. You're up early, you're helping with the family farm, you're doing things with the family to that are productive. You're not just focusing on yourself and your own needs, me, building little narcissists. It was, I'm contributing to the group. How do I contribute to the group? How I'm showing up to the group. And you see it even in relationships where people, I'm single now, unexpectedly single. I'm divorced after 20 something years. But you swipe on the apps, right? And women are like, well, here's what I want. I want somebody to complement my life in the following ways. And I heard a great relationship quote from, I don't know if it was Esther Perel or whoever it was, saying something like, you have your top 10 list of the things that you want out of a relationship. Why don't we flip this around? What are the top 10 things you're going to give to a relationship? And I would guarantee, talk to most people and they don't have that list. They don't have a clue what they're going to give, because this is all about me. I'm a consumer-driven individual, bit narcissistic, but don't put that label on me, because that's so bad. And and I focused on me for 20-something years at least, and all of my needs. And so in this moment, here's what I need. I need somebody to do whatever for me, compliment me, add to my life, rather than I'm going to contribute in the following ways. And I think it gets us in serious trouble, not only in relationships, intimate relationships, but I think it gets us serious trouble with friendships. How am I showing up as an individual for my friends? Am I able to be somebody's 3 a.m. call? If you need to talk to somebody, am I able to be somebody's 3 a.m. call? Will I get my ass out of bed and drive over to you? Will I intercept you, in your crazy time and say, whoa, don't let this go further? How am I putting myself into the friendships and into relationships rather than taking from them?
Yeah, that is so remarkable. I mean, that's really amazing. I really like that flipping that you mentioned. Like, what am I going to bring to the relationship? What am I going to bring to the friendship? And I couldn't tell you, honestly. No, I mean, I don't have a top 10 list of things that I will bring to the friendship. I know exactly how I would feel about people in the friendship. I know that I want to make the person feel comfortable. I know that I want to make the person feel safe and vulnerable. And that's about as far as I've got. Like, I feel that is a really great thing to continue to reflect on. And I appreciate that you brought it up, because we all, like, I used to just believe that everything was about me and about me and my needs, but it was about me and thinking that I knew what they wanted. And that showed up in my friendships too. Like, it's all about me and my needs and what I can give. And I would give and give and give and feel drained, even though nobody asked for it. Nobody asked for it, but it was all about me. It was like me. And so we do this, and our relationships, it's like two black holes just kind of swirling together, like draining each other and not lifting each other up and feeding each other with some energy of their own. Like, I need to come with my own energy and give it to you in places that you need and compliment you. But I also need to know what you're going to give to me, right? So
yeah, absolutely. I think there's a maturing process, I think, of knowing through time, and not everybody goes through it. I'm not saying everybody has to, right? I'm a super introspective guy. So I know things that I'm no good at, in friendships. Like, I'm not gonna, be great at texting. That's just not my jam.
That's wonderful.
But it doesn't mean I don't care. And I follow a process. Like, sometimes somebody will come to my mind. Like, there's a guy I haven't talked to for 2 years. And he came to my mind, Abdulaziz, amazing guy, loved the man. And he came to my mind yesterday, and I was like, hey, this is Jason. And, out of the blue. And I was like, you came to my mind. I'd love to reconnect with you. Now, some people would be like, well, wait a second. That's 2 years ago. That's weird. I'm just going to throw myself into the pit, because I know that there's a reason he's coming to my mind. I don't know what that reason is. And maybe it's just to connect for whatever, but there's a reason. There's a something deeper happening that brings a person to my mind. So I'm going to text them in that scenario. But I think one of the things you talked about, and I think this goes back to identity. We are bad at knowing who we are because we need to be told who we are.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be told who they are. This idea that I'm going to come up with who I am on my own, not true. Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen. I will wander like, I will wander like pigeons in the sky or something like that. So I don't know. I've never said that. That's not a thing. That's not a saying. Don't look it up in like Urban Dictionary or something like that. It doesn't exist. but we need to be told, and I can prove it because I know a lot of who I am as an individual from my mom and dad. Mm-hmm. And I carry that as 44-year-old man. I carry with me now who the kind of the paradigm of thinking of who I am. Yeah. And it's not that I haven't discovered my own traits. I have traits. Like I didn't go into the family business because it didn't, that wasn't for me. And I don't, I've embarked on down roads that the rest of my family is not, maybe. Mm-hmm. And I have those unique traits, but I have a place in that family, and I know who I am from my mom and dad, and I pass that on to my kids. I've told them from very young age, here's who you are, here's who you are, here's who you are, here's who you are. Just don't forget this. Here's who you are. If you're in a troubled scenario, here's who you are. If you feel like you're super successful, here's who you are.
I'm super curious. Right? So I'm super curious about this. Who you are, and when you say, because I'm mm-hmm. thinking about as who you are and as a reflection of other people, like. You will understand yourself more as other people kind of reflect back who you are, like what your behaviors impress upon them. Then you get an idea of what you are doing, and you can also feel from other people's behaviors reflected at you. So whatever they do, how you feel about that, and that's like a awareness of who you are. And I wonder if that's what you mean when you say that, when you talk about coming, like your parents tell you
both.
Who you are. Yeah,
it's both. There's something that comes in, there's something that comes out, right? And there's something that gets reflected back. The reflection back is the thing that I'm putting out in the universe. Is that working? Mm-hmm. And it might not be working, and it doesn't mean it's supposed to. Right? So for instance, this is actually just a chapter in my book. It's called Damn the Critics. And it talks about the inner critic, talks about the outer critic. And the inner critic is there. A lot of times we talk about this inner critic that, the inner critic maybe talks badly to us. Our inner voice, it speaks poorly about us. It's like, well, you can't and you shouldn't and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
That's not true of everybody's inner critic.
Right.
That inner critic was formed based on somebody else's voice at one point in time. That voice came externally. It didn't just drum itself up. It came externally, out of which we gave it more power.
Right.
And, you talk to people about friendships and how to reframe things. You can determine what power that has, and you can even reteach it. But a part of that inner critic, this is the interesting twist on it. The inner critic is there to help us figure out what we are capable of.
Right.
And it might be saying it in the opposite way. You're not able to do whatever. Oh, that's how my critic always talks to me, which means it's actually calling me forward. It's saying, no, you can excel, you can achieve greatly because the inner critic is speaking, because whatever formed my inner critic happens to speak very poorly. Mm-hmm. Right? It's always the enemy.
Yes. Okay.
Right? Don't storm the gates means you probably should storm the gates. Mm-hmm. Right? Then there's the outer critic, which tests whether what you're doing is working, which there are industries built on this. So let's say I'm a singer, right? And I'm a reasonably good singer. It's been proven. I think I'm a good singer. I've tested that, and it's been proven because when I go sing, people are like, that's great. You did a great job. It doesn't mean I've always done a great job. Sometimes my mom, who always has a great voice of like, you did a great job. I love you. Sometimes my mom has said, you did a great job. And I'm like, that is not true. I fumbled that second verse and went, like, that was not a good performance. Stop telling me I did a good job. I know you love me. Why don't you just say you love me? But that was crap. Because it was. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the outer critic speaks things that are not true either. They speak it out of love. But like I think it was American Idol or something like that. Yeah, American Idol. A person says, I can sing. I'm going to be a singer. Right? Yeah. Mom and dad were like, you can do it. And then they get to live television, millions of people watching them. And they're like, oh, wow, that's not a music. You cannot sing. Right? Inner critic, totally wrong. Outer critics, totally wrong. Or at least lying. Somebody's lying someplace. Whatever's happening here is not, it's lies. It's not working, right? And then it gets to the actual critics, people who know what they're talking about, and they're like, whoa, that's really terrible. And now the inner critic has to be readjusted, and that person's like, but I thought I could sing. Yes, but your inner critic is wrong. Just because you think you can or think you should does not mean you can or should. It has to be tested against something else. Just because I think I'm friendly means nothing. Just because I think I'm not amped up on coffee and being a real jackass doesn't mean anything. Yeah. It has to be. We are formed only in relationship.
Yeah, I think so too. And that all makes a whole lot of sense to me about having that reflected back to your inner critic and your outer critic, understanding exactly what it is that you can create or what you want to create or what you should create, essentially. I think that's what you're saying, the gist of it. And that really speaks to me because I think, though, that none of it's wrong. Like you're saying, you didn't say anything was wrong about it. We're just like having this experience with it. And it seems interesting and enjoyable about that. Like we're having this experience. Well, what do you do now that you realize that your inner critic was wrong? And you get to go on another journey. You get to go on the journey and figure out what you want to do. And I think that's remarkable.
There's so in this Damn the Critics thing, I talk about George Washington, who, George Washington, the man, the general, signer of Declaration of Independence, all around great man. He died a tragic death. Most people don't know his tragic death. His tragic death was this. He was riding around on his estate on his horse. And they said, hey, it's time for dinner. And he said, okay, great. I'm running late. He went to dinner in his wet clothes because he's an all-around great guy. Didn't want to be late for dinner. And shortly thereafter, he developed a bad sore throat. The medicine of the day was he gargled butter, vinegar, something else. They treated him with a salve of dried up beetles, like in the back of his throat. Because dried up beetles that's a thing.
Yeah, because that sounds perfect.
Right? Sounds great. He took a vinegar and something else in like a steam, and then they also gave him an enema just to be sure.
All right.
And you're right. I mean, now we're like, okay, now we're getting someplace. He's probably gonna be cured. And then then they bled 40% of his blood over the course of about 8 hours. Because the medicine of the day said you should probably bleed him to get rid of the bad stuff. Mm-hmm. And 21 hours later, this strong man who left a great legacy was dead. So George Washington was killed by medical malpractice, by doctors, the smart people of the day, with one of the most powerful people of the day, and everybody was completely wrong. Just because we believe something does not mean we are correct. We are already wrong in some way, to some degree we are not yet aware of. All of us. I'm already wrong in some way, to some degree I am not yet aware of. And I may never have in my lifetime become aware of it. They may find out years later that, you know what, you probably shouldn't just, put a dried beetle salve in the back of a man's throat. You probably shouldn't take his blood out. Just thinking. Don't take the blood out. Give him an antibiotic, right?
Yes.
We in this space are already wrong in some way, to some degree, that we are not yet aware of, and it has nothing at all to do with how strongly we are convicted about it.
Wow, that's interesting. And I'm like, I don't want to hear. I'm all protective about it because I'm like, I don't want to hear the fact that I'm wrong about something. I could be wrong about something. I know. I hear you saying that, and I'm like, well, no, you're wrong.
I know. Listen, I'm telling you, everybody pushes back against it. I pushed back against it for sure. And here's why here's why I came up with that statement. It was a number of years ago. Yeah. I advised like bunches of people with businesses and whatnot. And so I've been and I've owned businesses and had all sorts of things. And I tend to be in leadership at places. Wherever I go, I tend to gravitate towards leadership for whatever reason. And I got in this cycle of like everything I think, I just have to talk about and I'm probably right. Everything I think I'm right. I like, oh, they're asking me about something. I should, here's my opinion. And I'm probably right. And it doesn't mean I'm not probably right. That's the thing. But there's this idea of confirmation bias, well studied by psychologists, that whatever we are looking for, we look for reasons to continue to believe that. And it just that truth, whatever we came up with, no matter how wrong it is, just starts sinking deeper in. And our brains get in this cycle. That's a good thing because we don't want to be people who just blow in the wind. We'd be really bad friends, really terrible workers, if we couldn't be relied upon. So reliability comes from heading in a direction, having some sort of momentum behind us. But we can get on the wrong track and build momentum just as easily and start to believe our own bullshit. And so I thought, well, I got to break myself from this. And so I came up with the opposite saying, I'm already wrong in some way to some degree I am not yet aware of. And not only is it very true, and it's been proven throughout thousands of years, but I know it's true of me for sure. 100%. There have been things that I have believed that I look back and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And in fact, we believe it in the silliest of ways, in just anecdotes, like the early bird gets the worm. We're looking at that. We're like, yeah, that's probably true. Good things come to those who wait. That's true too. Those are opposites. Yeah. So what is it? Good things come to those who wait. The early bird gets the worm. Turns out it's situational. Turns out we will apply anything to any circumstance so that we can feel good.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I think that I'm going to take that and interpret it as like we can be curious about things. Just kind
of have to be.
And just shorten it and just say, well, we can always learn something instead of like, because when I hear this wrongness, my brain is like, nothing's wrong or nothing's right. It just is. And so that's what happens with me. And I know that you're
and yet you and I would look at a beetle salve, and any doctor would look at beetle salve and go, that's totally wrong. It's not just like, well, do it if you want to. No, you're actually making that infection worse by taking dried beetles and jamming into the back of the man's throat. Yeah, well, it's totally wrong. It's totally wrong medically.
Of course, we wouldn't do that today. But of course, I mean, they didn't know, and they did all the information that they had and everything that everybody believed that this was the thing that needed to be done to resolve the problem. That's what they believed at the time. And so, and
we are one of, let's say in this space, we're 2 of 8.5 billion people on the planet.
I see what you're
living
saying.
In a cross section of generations of hundreds at least, or maybe thousands of generations before, and maybe hundreds or thousands or millions or billions of generations after, who knows? And I am very wrong in some way, to some degree, I am not yet aware of. And I may never become aware of it because that's just what we all believed in this moment.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. There's always something more we can learn.
Right. And so to your point, being curious, hey, how'd you come to that? How'd you come to that thing? Like, why do we have to say LOL, when we're sitting in the car, my dear daughter, can't we just laugh about it? Can't we just do what we used to do? Go, we have to say
about that. And there's nothing wrong about that. Or there is something wrong about that. We don't know.
Right. Exactly. And so so it's like, okay, well, I don't want to damage the relationship with my daughter by just, being a hard ass about,
absolutely.
Verbiage. Nobody cares. And yet, when my son was, this idea of tell a person who they are, when my son was writing this, he wrote a terrible essay at one point in time. He had a school thing due, and it was bad. And the kid was smart. It's not like he couldn't have done better. And so I said, well, that's all right. And he waited to the absolute last minute, and he didn't want to do it. And then he just wrote this gobbledygook. And I was like, I talked to my wife and I was like, have you read this? She's like, yeah, that's terrible. I was like, I know. So I said, so what am I going to do about this? I said, well, here's the deal. He's old enough that he can choose this, but he also needs to take responsibility for knowing, like he needs to take responsibility that I know this is not my best work. As I said, so what you can do 2 things, either rewrite this and make this something that you'd be proud of, or 2, just write a quick little cover letter just stating that mom and dad have read this and everybody agrees this is not your best work, but you're going to hand it in anyhow.
So what did he do?
He rewrote it in 2 hours and it was amazing.
Oh wow.
And yet he had taken the whole week of like, as he might have been, 14 or something like that.
Yeah. I
He
guess
just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
That's all he was trying. He was trying to express his boundary of, I don't want to do that. It's like, yes, but in this context, you need to do your best work because this education is important.
Yeah.
And this is a good lesson because eventually it's not just going to be a teacher going, oh, well, you didn't really do your best work. It's going to be your employer going, you're fired because you can't seem to leave, you can't seem to do good work at any point in time.
Right.
Like that was developed a long time ago because, and if I would have just been like, well, do whatever you want, at least unnecessary heartache would have occurred, as he learned to discover that that's just not the way the world works. Your employer's just not going to keep you around.
Yeah, definitely.
And now he does a great job, and he's learning the balance.
Yeah, understanding what the result is going to be and what's going to happen, it's not just, oh, well, it's like, that's not what he wants. And at the long run, at the end of the day, that's not really, really wants. And so helping him understand that is definitely a great way to help motivate without telling him that you need to change something. It's your life, it's your decision, but also, you can only see the short term and what you feel right now, but I've been here a little longer and I can tell you a little bit about what it looks like for you down the line. Just imagine, help clarity and help seeing what that looks like is key. It's key. Then our reflections.
My daughter texted me the other day. She's like, Dad, I want to cut off my hair. And I was like,
oh, yeah. Does she have like long
why?
hair?
Yeah, it's beautiful long hair. She's I'm going to buzz my head.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, why? I'm thinking, does like a classmate have cancer and we're doing, solidarity?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, right? People do that. And I was like, why do you want to do that? She's like, hair is unmanageable. And it's just, I have to, she says, what'll happen? She says, here's my thing. I'll cut it all off. It's going to come back stronger.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. I said, well, this is not going to play out how you think it's going to play out. You're going to go to school bald, and it's not going to grow back stronger. Your hair is plenty strong as it is. There's nothing. It's not like your hair is always growing. Mm-hmm. The next piece of hair that's coming out is the same piece of hair that would have come out had you just cut all the rest of it off. And I was like, and she gave it a little bit of thought. And she was like, yeah, you're right. It kind of makes no sense. I was like, yeah, I know, but
wow.
Hey, 45-year-old guy versus person who's just, she's just talking. And all she was doing in that moment, she just wants to have a conversation. She's just wants to have a conversation, and we talked about hair. She just wanted to talk to her dad. Really, was the whole point.
Oh wow, okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
that's really
has nothing to do with hair. But most bids, when people put bids out. Like, I'm going to cut off all my hair. It has nothing at all to do with the hair. It has to do with, I'm wanting to talk to you. Can you pay attention to me?
Yeah, it's like sending a text message saying like, oops, I accidentally messaged you. But you really want to chat. You really want to have a conversation. You want to talk about, just don't know how to initiate that conversation about whatever it is. Or you're afraid of rejection or something like that is going to happen. Like, I can't be forward with you and say, hey, this is how I feel. And this is what I want to do. Or this is what I want to share with you or want to talk to you about. And that shows up so much in my friendships, just being afraid of being rejected about, whatever idea, or even if I did have an idea, like I wouldn't want to share it because I didn't want to be rejected.
I dealt with that for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't text people to say, hey, do you want to go mountain biking?
Yeah. And then I would be mad that they wouldn't want to invite me to do anything.
Well, it's weird because and like you talked about earlier, it's all about what's happening inside. It has nothing at all to do with the other person. I didn't want to feel, because I just assumed they don't want to go mountain biking with me. Mm-hmm. And if I did ask, they're probably going to tell me no. And even if they did give me a reasonable excuse, like they were having dinner with the family or something like that, might not be true.
Yeah, because
they don't want to be with me. Mm. And I don't know where. I can look back and figure out, maybe the roots of that, but there's no real solid root for where that stuff developed. And nowadays I would just be like, hey, you want to go? Oh, you don't? All right, fine.
Yeah.
I could give me no, never mind. Doesn't make a difference to me at all. I might miss you for sure. Would I like to go with you instead of just by myself? 100%. But I don't feel like somehow the universe is broken and Jason's a bad, unlovable individual.
Yes.
Just because somebody didn't have other plans.
Yes.
You got other plans. Huh. Sometimes I have other plans.
Yeah, exactly.
We get our heads wrapped around all sorts of things and then act out in weird ways.
Yeah, and I really think that one of the most our self-esteem is definitely tied to, I think, is what we can do, how we can change our environment. And we have these grandiose ideas about how we can change other people and affect their emotional state and things like that. And that reflects on us as our own self-esteem, when actually, I can be esteemed by anything I do, anything I say. I can go clean, and I've changed my environment. I've cleaned up. I've completed the goal. I can feel ecstatic about that. I can be ecstatic about just having some water, getting up to stand up and stretch, because I can do it. I've changed my environment in some way. It's minuscule and doesn't affect anybody else around me except me, but it's something that can be esteeming. And so just drawing it from that instead of the impact that you're having on other people. Like, I want to be famous, so I want to talk to more and more people. And the more and more people I talk to, the better and more self-esteem that I feel. But we don't have to tie it to that. We can just tie it to our own selves, because all we can do is control ourselves, get the esteem from what we do, how we feel, what we say, what we think, those things. And so, like, not having somebody want to mountain bike with you, not having somebody want to go karaoke. I used to do a lot of karaoke. Nobody having people. I know it makes this so late, but
I love karaoke.
Yeah, I do. My voice changed, and I have not done much.
That probably changed things.
Yeah. Because then I'm afraid, like, oh well, people aren't gonna like me, or I can't sing the songs I want to. Because I used to sing Spice Girls a lot. Wannabe, everybody gets up to do Wannabe. I mean, everybody sings "If You Want to Be My Lover." See, it doesn't sound good now. But just having the ability to say, oh, "Whoa, that rejection has nothing to do with me," is fantastic. And that's where you are, and that's where I want other people to be. That's where I want to be. But I can only just be that myself and hope to reflect and radiate that out to other people instead of trying to impose that on them. Yeah.
Well, it's not all roses. I don't want to paint too rosy of a picture, but after going through some significantly hard times, some of that insecurity has been beaten away. And I don't need it I don't need it in my life anymore. Mm-hmm. And I've discovered that I don't need to control outcomes, which is what I was doing a lot of my life. If I do this thing this way, then I'll get the best possible outcome for the good of all of everything, which is way above pay grade. Like it's nothing we're supposed to hold. Mm-hmm. We are not supposed to hold the weight of the entire world. It's not us. That's not us. And I think also the other thing is allow for growth over time. I am already wrong in some way, to some degree, that I am not yet aware of, no matter how convinced I am. And that might 20 years from now might have massively changed. And that's okay. Because if I was still believing things that I believed when I was 10, I would be a really weird 45-year-old.
Yes. I can just imagine some of the things. Like, yeah, I mean, it's important to grow and evolve over time, because the only thing constant is change. And so we want to change with the times to get comfortable. Yeah. And what I've also discovered is that internally, and I know we've gone over time. I hope you're okay with that. No problem. But internally, we have these layers of understanding. And as soon as we crack through one of those layers, an entire world opens up, and we act maybe even very, very differently externally. Yeah. So one of those things, people talk about shadow work, the things we hide, repress, and deny, and they sit in our shadow, right? So if light was coming this way, we are like, I'm gonna dance around this so that you can't see what's in my shadow, and I don't want to look at it either, because what's that say about me? And if you saw it, boof, you would definitely not be my friend. Yeah. So I'm gonna bob and weave, and really what hides in the shadow, the overarching thing is shame.
Here's all the things I'm ashamed of.
Yeah.
And I know that you're going to be ashamed of me. And I know that what that leads to is disconnection. And so we just short circuit the whole thing and just say, I'm not going to look at it because I feel like I don't want to feel bad about myself. Don't want to feel disconnected. Certainly don't want to. And if I did see this, like, would it like escape my mouth? Would I have to tell you? Would it just like spill out?
Yeah.
But on the table over dinner, like, and everybody's doing that. We are all in some ways doing it. And I've talked to people who didn't even know stuff was in their shadow. They're like, I had no idea that was even back there until it's like, I forgot that I didn't remember this memory. It's been sitting back there for 30 years.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden when they address it and they just speak its truth, all of a sudden it has no power.
And then it has no power. Yeah.
And then the bobbing and weaving, which everybody intuitively knows is happening, it's gone. And all of a sudden there's an intimacy of relationships that happens. And so like, well, I can just be me. Sometimes I'm a goof, and sometimes I'm super introspective. Sometimes I think too much. Sometimes I think too little. My book never would have happened 6 months ago, 8 months ago, because I would have been scared. In fact, I was talking to my writing coach. I said, Paul, one of the reasons I know that this is the right time is there's a very specific fear that's arising, which is I don't want to tell all the things that I think. I don't want to put them out there because I don't want to be judged for them. I don't want to tell the stories. I don't want to feel some of these stories. I don't want to cry through writing a book. Yeah. And I cried so much. Yeah. So much. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
And it was so healing to bring some of those things to the surface, to just say, yeah, these are the things that I felt. And now they don't have any power, and I'm happy to use them for the good of others.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Because I'm not hiding anything. Like, what are you possibly going to do to me?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you really know that it just isn't that important how people feel. It just matters how it feels with you inside, and sharing your truth gives it no power. And boom, there it is, no power. And then to your point, where everybody's doing this dance, I think that like talking about the fact that everybody's doing this dance rather than just everybody like kind of acknowledging secretly is more connecting than just hiding the fact that you're dancing. I can see you, and you can see me dancing. Let's talk about the dancing instead of ignoring the fact that we're doing it, and then help us be more connected and talk about our dance styles. I really love this, and sharing the truth. And that's part of what, makes the genuine connections and friendships, is you sharing all this stuff with me, despite how I might feel about it, the disconnect that we could have had earlier by saying like, I don't like what you're saying and so forth. But it's like, well, you recognize that, and I recognize that, and we're okay.
Well, it's so interesting. Back to that, I know that you bristled against it, but it'll relax into it. It'll grow on you. I'm already wrong in some way, to some degree I'm not yet aware of. If I know that about me, I also know the same is true about all the other 8.5 billion people on the planet. And so the thing that I'm spouting off into the universe between two people, I could be totally wrong. Even though I really, really believe this. You could be totally wrong, even though you really believe that. And also it levels the playing field. It's like it's death, taxes, we all, most of us tend to take a shit on the pot. Like life is not clean. It's not meant to be clean. It's meant to be figured out. And if we keep on looking for the most productive, efficient way through all this other stuff, not going to work. We're meant to do things out with each other, because that's how relationships are built. Relationships are built between people who come at some things with differing thoughts, same general direction, to say, hey, listen, you know what? Here's my experience. Oh, that's your experience? Like your point earlier, like, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
Where'd pull up come from? Because I didn't know that, and I feel weird saying it. Am I even allowed to say it? I don't even know. Does it sound, it sounds weird when I say it, hey, pull up, I don't know what to do with it, but I feel like I'm connected and part of the crowd, part of my friends, but I also feel weird. It's like, well, fine. Who told you they weren't supposed to feel weird? Life is weird. Like,
it is
really weird.
Life is everything that you feel. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
ups,
awesome.
Down, sideways, inside, outside. Who cares? Figure it out. Stay in communication with somebody.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else you want to discuss? We're at an hour. Oof.
Anything else I want to discuss? Well,
What else is on your mind?
What's that?
What else is on your mind?
How long are we going to be talking?
I don't care how long you want to talk.
Okay. So let's see.
I got a couple more minutes left.
Okay, that works for me. Because I'm like, well, what else? I mean, I do have some life experience, but I can talk about, let's see, my transitions, my experiences from moving from, I grew up in a small town in Ohio, and I thought that I couldn't connect with people there. Went to college, had new experiences, thought I was going to be connected with those people, but didn't connect with those people there. So I left the entire state of Ohio thinking that's broken. Ohio's garbage. I thought that was true. And so I left for California, and that's where I discovered karaoke, and I created this whole karaoke thing where all the people knew me. Like a lot of people in the bars and the clubs, they knew me, and I was still super lonely. So I figured I'm still presenting as female in this. So I have an opportunity to move to Chicago, and in Chicago, where I am now, is where I got the language and the information to become a trans person. So transition. That was around the time Caitlyn Jenner was transitioning or come out as well. So it was like, all right, now it feels kind of safe to come out. I understand what I'm feeling. I understand the language behind it. I understand what I need to do. I've got all the resources. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to be my authentic self, and everybody's going to love me. And sure enough, none of that stuff happened. I didn't feel loved or anything. I kept repeating these patterns that I've had before. And the deep down idea was that there's something I'm ashamed of, and the thing, whatever the shame was, whatever was hiding in the shadow can change at any time. It's like, all right, now I'm releasing this, and this is my truth. I'm trans, but now I'm ashamed of it. I'm going to hide that behind things. It made it difficult to date. It made it difficult to talk to people. And I had an experience where like I was oversharing. I was oversharing because I didn't know how to make these connections. I thought, well, if I'm going to look back in the shadow and see what's going on, I'm supposed to go and get it and share it with people. Like, all right, I'm going to do this and stop being ashamed of it. So I go to this bar, comedy club, and I come with the mindset that I'm going to connect with somebody. I'm going to meet somebody. We're going to be cool, and we're going to be friends after, whatever. This is my reality. I can create this. I go and we start having a conversation, meet a guy, start having a conversation. It's cool. And he mentions that he's never met a trans person before, doesn't understand the process, doesn't understand why anybody would ever want to do that. And I thought, yes, I'm going to help you out, bro. This is it. This is the moment. I'm supposed to share my truth with you. And do that. And his face is like, changed, jaw dropped, left the beer, didn't say anything else, just left.
Just left?
Just left.
Damn.
Just left. Yeah, just left. And I was like, well, this is wrong. I'm wrong. I didn't know. That was not the right time to share that. Or was it the right time? What I learned though is that there's two people in this conversation. There's one person who is like really desperate to make friendships and connections, me, and is willing to share everything and anything about myself. And that just didn't work. It was a lesson for me to learn. And also, hey, I wasn't paying attention to how this guy might have felt. He said he didn't understand the process or anything about it. He didn't even have the language to say, man, this was ridiculous or scary, or I don't even understand what's going on with you. What? I can't believe it. He didn't have the words for it. He just left. So I'm like, I wasn't present in recognizing it. So that is just a realization some years later, because I was devastated by that. I felt like even more like, oh, well, this is the thing I should hide. But I was devastated more by it. But now it's like, now I understand that there is a mindfulness that comes with it. People want to be understood, and people want to feel safe and comfortable with sharing and oversharing. So slowly getting to know them, getting to share a little bit of me too, revealing a little bit of myself. So I don't want to reveal everything at once, but I do want to, like, one of the things I practice now when connecting with people is asking them questions or steering the conversation towards a little bit of LGBT, just to see how they feel about it, see how they're comfortable. We may not be able to connect on a real deep level where I share, hey, I'm trans. And it might be the first time we talk because maybe they are too, and they're willing to share. And I can just be like open and share with them. Or maybe we never get to because they're just not on that level. And that's not what I feel comfortable with. I want somebody who's absolutely comfortable with that and not going to run away or not going to hurt me with questions. Be curious, sure, but not critical of what I want, like, or how I live my life. I don't to want that for sure. And I can bring them the same. I know that that's something that can contribute to it. But just
those are high ideals.
The high ideals of what?
I'll push back against it just for a moment.
Yeah.
Having been, I was married for 23 years. And the idea of just the overarching thing has nothing to do with being trans or not. Yeah. The overarching idea of building close connection and not having somebody take exception or say something that doesn't come across as critical or mean is not reality. Oh, I definitely said things that were mean. That I didn't mean it that way. She's my wife. I didn't mean to beat her down, but I probably did in ways that, I snapped in the moment or whatever. Or asked a question like, why are you doing it that way? That makes no sense. Right. And I feel like sometimes we take these things about us, particularly in this culture, things about trans or whatever, that it's like, well, don't push that. Don't push the button. Don't ask. Oh yeah. Don't ask the questions. Don't make me feel bad.
I'm definitely saying that people can ask the questions and all that stuff, but they're not going to be my close friend. They're just not going to be my close friend. If this is a core part of my personality and who I am, and you're going to go and question, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why? I don't agree with it. Then what are we doing?
Right. Well, there you go. So you push them off, and well, we're not going to go out for drinks.
I'm saying I want to spot that. I want to see how comfortable they are with it, because I would think like, well, I don't need to spend the energy in trying to convince them to change anything about who they are and what they think about me. And I want to keep the peace in my space, and I will just allow them to go off and exist and talk about me outside of my face. Not to me, because they're not going to do it. They're not going to do anything or say anything to change me. They may get that self-esteem from changing other people and affecting their energy or imposing their energy on it, but not for me. I don't need that. I want somebody who wants to compliment me, not challenge. Challenge me is definitely great, but somebody to beat me down and to just, I want you to feel bad just because, that doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to keep that around. And I want to be able to, I develop things where I kind of spot those things right away. Like, what are things important to me that are going to set me off and make me feel upset, and critical things that aren't necessarily helping me to grow, but just trying to make me feel small. There's a huge difference in that.
No, I totally get that. I was out for drinks the other night and ended up in the conversation out of the gate with a very bubbly, perhaps too bubbly, seemed to me argumentative woman who was hell-bent on not degrading men, but very, I'll say it this way, very, very hell-bent on women's rights without any balance that men are 50% of the world. And she doesn't want to be alone. And there's no man who will ever go under, and she's wondering why, she's wondering why, she's complaining about how her relationships never last, basically. And she's like, maybe it's me, and it's like, it is. It's totally you. Yeah. Because no man wants to go into a partnership with someone who is in competition with them. You know what a man wants? Peace. Mm-hmm. That's what he wants. He wants peace. He wants to be able to create it for you, and he wants you to create it for him. That's what he wants, because the rest of the world is not peaceful. The rest of the world, he'll go to war. But his home, give him peace. Yeah. And she was just like, beat the drum, beat the drum, beat the drum, beat the drum. We went into like, do we need commitment? I don't want to have, I want to have a relationship. I want to have a long-term relationship, but I don't want to have the government telling me that I have to sign a paper. I was like, okay, but you want a contract, right? Well, no, I don't want a contract. I said, no, you do want a contract, right? Well, I said, you want an unspoken contract where the two of you have agreed indefinitely to stay together, and he's going to accept your foibles and you're going to accept him and you're going to work it out. That's the contract you want, right? Right. Well, yeah, but I don't need that in paperwork. I was like, okay, but you started with, I don't want a contract to, well, actually I do want a contract. I really do want to be able to bare my soul and have him be able to be like, I still love you, babe. Well, you can't be in competition with that person. The two do not work. You don't go. The only contracts that are built in competition are ones where it's like, here's how I'm going to sue you when you overstep your bounds. But that's not how relationships work. So either figure out why you have to defend yourself so much, or accept the fact that you're not going to be in a relationship with the guy. You just won't.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe by chance you'll find a guy who will just do whatever your bidding is, but that's not going to happen either. He'll do it for just so long, and then he's going to leave you.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know what to tell you. Figure your stuff out. But it was interesting. So what the end of this was, and I was just I was invited into this conversation. I was there for an hour, dying. I was like, oh my God, what are we talking about?
Why?
I'm dying. Like literally, I cannot handle this anymore.
Oh,
and I was just like, I gotta go.
The logic behind the whole thing is like, oh yeah, like
it. Well, and it was like whatever I wanted to say, it was just like, blah, 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 blah. It's like, you want to know why your relationships aren't working? Talk to me. I'm a guy. Of the people who should know, I'm the person you should be asking. Right. I don't know what you're spinning around with you and your girlfriend here, but I can tell you haven't figured it out. And I happen to know because I am a guy.
Yeah. I mean, all you had to do is be mindful of what was happening in the moment and recognize that if she could just step out of herself for a moment and recognize the impact it was having on you and the complete disconnect that it was have the information that she wasn't getting. She just couldn't hear any of it because you're a guy and it's all defensive. And probably even if it came from another person, it'd be like, no, these are my beliefs and this is it. And I can't, none are wrong.
and the core of it, because I'm a pretty good study of humans, the core of it was she had just been out of a relationship where she got burned hard. She was going to marry that guy.
Yeah.
And then that guy walked away from her. She got burned so hard and she's working out of hurt. So whatever she went into that with that maybe has been unhealed now just became that. Now you've got more cuts, deeper cuts. Mm-hmm. And of course you're in competition with men. You don't want to say that you're absolutely devastated and hurt and wondering. You don't actually want to know the answer to the question, maybe it's me, because you are deathly afraid that it might be.
Yeah, definitely.
And you want to be able to share that. Honestly, you actually do want to be able to share that in this space. Mm-hmm. Be say, you know what, here's what my life has been to this point, and it actually might be me. And if that's true, then what's my present and what's my future? And I'm so scared that then I end up alone, rejected, right? All these things. And so her answer is just fight.
Yeah, and like I think it's really cool to be able to recognize that and be able to kind of coax that out though, and to be able to say, hey, it's safe to come out. It's safe to come out. And it doesn't. Yeah, it's pretty hard to do, right? I mean, there's been a whole lot of years.
Not the time or space.
Yeah.
I mean, to this discussion, and then we should probably close it up. We're almost at 1:15.
Okay.
Yes. I've got 2:00 I need to prepare for, but to our point about friendships, building not honest. Everybody's being as honest as they can. Mm-hmm. Building or allowing space for people to be themselves in relationship with other people over time, allowing for change of ourselves internally and other people, I think develops a richness of relationship. And it doesn't mean people are going to get along for forever. That's just not realistic.
Yeah, values change.
But and then to your point earlier, the most important thing is about what's happening in us. If I'm being challenged, what is that challenging in me? Because I might already be wrong to some degree I'm not yet aware of, Mm-hmm. And if I can lay that down, like maybe I'm being challenged because there's something in my shadow that I, like this lady, she's coming out fighting because she doesn't want to be sad. She doesn't want to face it. And I get it 100%.
Be angry instead of being sad. Yeah. But I mean, everybody wants that closeness, that connection that comes with being understood. And it's really hard to be open enough and vulnerable enough to really be understood. And, it's even more frightening. I know that we're going to wrap it up, but it's even more frightening to have someone tell you what your truth is before you recognize it, before you're willing to share it too. It's like that just makes people feel more attacked than anything.
Yeah.
And I know that feeling myself, like, ouch, man. I know that, but I don't want you to know that you know that. Like, I don't need that.
You're totally right.
Yeah.
And that's where it's the great human equalizer. It's not a male female thing. It is a great human equalizer that each one of us deals with shame. And all of us, all 8.5 billion of us on the planet, want to be accepted for who we are now, and want to be accepted for who we're becoming. And because we don't more than half the time, even know that.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's all sorts of things I don't even like about myself right now. So, and I'm working on it.
That's all you can do.
Yes. Well, you want to? I'm going to put your website up here if you want to get in contact with you. Sir, do you want any words of wisdom you want to close us out with?
Oh yeah. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, my name's Lee Hopkins. My pronouns are he, him, his. And you can find me at Patterns of Possibility. If you go to the site, you can find 10 tips for making memorable conversations and starting up those conversations, and a free course on understanding connections.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here with me today. I count you among my friends. We've had a great discussion about conscious connection. I think we have had a conscious connection built even now in this space. Coffee with Humans, people getting together to make the world a better place, and I think we can do that. Catch us next time. Subscribe, share, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, wherever you see it. Make it happen. We love you all. Have a great day.
Love you. Take care.
One of the things I love about Coffee with Humans are the raw conversations I get to have, meeting new people just like you. If you or someone you know should be on Coffee with Humans, go to coffeewithhumans.com. Remember, the only rule is no sales calls.
This has been Coffee with Humans. Subscribe to get updates or click to have coffee with me. coffeewithhumans.com.